The Secret Lives of Color, a prism that shines its aesthetic beauty poetically on fun-filled stories of history and present, of how colors are birthed and killed. The Secret Lives of Color. It is a microhistory written by Cassia St. Clair. I hope I pronounce her name correctly. Release date was 2016, and it's a fun, informative book about colors. So it's a micro history, and I'll explain that in a second. It's presented with an appropriate amount of humor. It's pretty diverse in its expression, but it makes it a great coffee table book that I want to pick up, and I look forward to picking up. Or I do in the future as well, because I'm going to reread it, and I'm going to explain a little more about why here. But first, aesthetically, because we're doing this in video format, sorry podcast listeners, you can check it out on YouTube. But yeah, The Secret Lives of Color, it's also just a beautiful aesthetic object. They put a lot of work into this, which makes sense because it is a book about color. So we have all these tabs, and they are colored as for the color that you are reading about. When you get into certain groups of colors, let's just say the color orange, when we're transitioning from one color to another, we've kind of got 2 pages of gradient. That's really beautiful. At the very beginning, though, there's a preface that talks a little bit about the technical aspects of color and vision and how we see things, and it is the driest part of the book. I was a little concerned once I got here, and I was like, oh no, I thought I was going to be reading stories about color, and now we're getting into science and stuff. And here it talks about simple arithmetic for a couple pages, building the palette. But this section isn't very long, and after that, it's just it's very entertaining and great and fun. But yeah, they do have a little bit of an introduction about how we see colors and the technical aspects of things. Talking about white and black as not being colors as well, and things of that nature. But we've got hundreds and hundreds of colors represented here, and I will tell you that at the back there's actually some contents here. Not the index, that's not what I want. For suggested reading, bibliography, of course, is there, but this is what I was looking for. It is a glossary of other interesting colors that are not talked about in the book, or they're talked about a little bit, but they don't have a whole section on it. So anyway, again, beautiful, beautiful book. Who is it for? I would say that it is for people who are artists, designers in the fashion industry, people who just work with color and really enjoy color. I think just enjoying color as a fan is really, I don't know how you do that unless you're like an artist or, I don't know, like being an appreciator of art is one thing, but getting into the nitty gritty of like specific palettes and colors and hues or whatever, I don't know how many people get that obsessive about it unless they are creators themselves. But I think any type of creator in a visual realm, put it that way, if you appreciate color that much, I guess, and you just love reading little coffee table books, then sure, right, good on you. Could be for you too, but it's really fun. It's incredibly informative and educational, but really entertaining as well. The entries in here are, they range from like a page to about 4 pages max. So, I mean, we are like, I think there's an average of 2 pages per color from what I'm going through right now, and they're fun. And I mentioned at the very beginning that they're expressing the history of a color, but also some of the present day uses. But that's the thing, is they talk about how colors are created and how they die. So a lot of times we are discussed, or the information we're getting, and why we're calling it a micro history, is because it's giving us the background on how this color even became a color. Some of it is more focused on chemical compounds that are discovered and how they've been discovered, how they were used early on, And sometimes we get into the fact that this color isn't used anymore. And it was really important for a time, important enough to be included in the book. And some of those names are familiar to me, but they're generally not used. It relates a lot of things here to fashion and also painting and art. So again, I feel like it is a book that is meant for more artists, designers, people those are the people that I think will get most out of it. But again, it's not like a textbook, and it doesn't read like that. It's not dry. I made the mistake. So I ended up like I attained this book a couple of years ago, and I heard about it. I think it was in one of the art magazines I subscribed to, but also on a podcast, and I don't remember which one. And I ended up getting it a couple of years back, and it's super cool looking, and I just hadn't picked it up yet. I've got other coffee table books that I keep at the studio and hadn't got around to this. But there is a podcast called Reading Glasses, which is great, and they have a reading glasses challenge they do every year, and one of them was to read a microhistory. That was the one for 2021. That was one of their books that they were challenging you to read, and I don't think I've ever read a microhistory, and I had to look up what a microhistory really was. And I call this a microhistory because it's not just like, here's the history of color. So a microhistory, as I know it, is a book of history that is not, it is on a very specific topic. So if someone was like, I'm going to give you the history of bicycles, that is very specific. Even more specific if they picked a type of bike. Here's the history of mountain bikes, very specific. Not, here's a history of transportation. That's way too broad to be a microhistory. So this I call a microhistory because it's not just a microhistory about color. We have history on hundreds of different colors, and they're very short. Like I said, like at most I think it was 4 pages for a color. But we've got these great insights again into how this color came to be in the world, how it was used, how it is used, or why it's not used anymore. And sometimes that has to do with the fact that, we realized that this was incredibly dangerous, and people had, I can't remember the compound like that people had in their walls and stuff, and just like that it was basically poisonous for humans, and we didn't use it anymore, and therefore now we use this other color instead. But I found it fun. Like, there was a lot of humorous parts in there, and they kept it pretty light for the most part, even when we're talking about things like war and like the color khaki and why that was used. I think it was just incredibly well done, and I think it is something that I will definitely read again. However, I think I was saying that I made the mistake of, because it was part of a challenge and I needed to read it, I had a time frame of a year to read it. The coffee table books that I have in the studio, and I've got studio books here that are not coffee table books, but just more, they're all art related or design related somehow, but I could take a long time to read those, and especially one like this. So I find that with things like short stories, for instance, I do better when I retain them better when I read them, or I feel like I retain them better, I get more out of them when I don't read like stories back to back to back to back to back. Reading a novel or something that's more long format for one specific narrative, I find I retain that a lot better. I'm in it longer, and I enjoy that as well. I enjoy short stories too, but I find that if I'm reading a collection of short stories by an author, I like to space it out a bit. And so for something like this that has hundreds of different, if you want to call them short stories or just little stories about colors, just like hundreds of them, I found like if I just picked it up and read about 1 or 2 colors that day, then that would have been better for me, and it could have influenced my work as an artist as well. Just being like, that's really cool, and I kind of like the look of that. I'm going to try using that right now as the primary color in this painting, or just whatever. But because I had a deadline, and I left this book at the studio, this is just a studio book, I had a deadline, so there were times where I felt pressure, and I ended up reading about like 5 to 10 colors in one sitting, and I couldn't remember a lot. But that's no fault of the book. I'm just saying that for me, as a reader, this type of book is something that would take me a while to get through and just be a really cool coffee table book. And I think I will definitely read through it again and just leave it here at the studio, and from time to time just pick a color or just pick a page, or maybe I'll go through it chronologically again. I'm not sure. and then just, read a little bit about it and kind of have fun with it. But yeah, top shelf book. That's where it's placed for me for what it is. It is not what I would call an important book by any means, but it is very fun and informative and educational and entertaining. And I think that it's really cool. Like, it's just a really cool book. I think that if there's any book that can teach me, a person who doesn't like research, who doesn't like history that much, like, I respect history, but I don't like to read about it or learn about it in traditional means. And this book gave me like so much knowledge about things that are outside of just color. Like, it just gives you, it helps you basically be better at Trivial Pursuit. Like, there's things in here that you pick up and learn about that are directly related to that color, but also are away from that. You could learn about certain wars or things like that, or even foods, or just all these different things culturally that are all around the world as to how these colors came to be created and got used and discarded. And it's just really cool. And like, I say it's top shelf because I don't have very many books like this, and this thing can hold my attention. I enjoyed reading it. I wanted to read it. It was not a chore for me. It just became this thing of this deadline where I was like, I've got to like bust out like a couple more colors in a day than I really wanted to, because I wanted to finish it for this reading challenge, and I kept it at the studio. So it's not like I didn't want to do the math and be like, there's this many colors, let's split it up and read this many per day, even though it'd be very easy to read that many per day because they're short entries. But yeah, I like it. It's a top shelf book. Again, it's not like conceptually super important. It doesn't push me to be a better person or anything like that. But for its purpose and function, it was great. Like, it's just this beautiful coffee table book that's very aesthetically pleasing. It's just a joy to open up and look at and read. And you're not committed to like long, boring, dry sections. Like, it's just perfect. It's just brilliant. It's really well done. There you have it, The Secret Lives of Color.